It's been proven by research that when your brain has different wavelengths, right, and frequencies, if you don't consciously tune your brain to the right frequency, then you're just at the mercy of everything at life. You wake up, you check your phone, bad news, negativity, boom, that's like your frequency now. Then everywhere you walk around the streets and you start to attract that frequency. For me now, it's I wake up in the morning and I consciously determine my frequency. So I tune it to love, appreciation, appreciate people around me. I appreciate good people, feeling gratitude and love and feeling good. And then that's what you attract.
Before we get started on today's episode, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the land of the Darug people. We would like to acknowledge and pay respects to our elders past and present and the next generation coming through. Now, onto today's episode. We're joined today by martial artist, #1 best-selling author, motivational speaker, and founder of Invincible worldwide, Alan La. Having grown up as a shy kid, Alan's parents signed him up for martial arts to build up his confidence and social skills, and ever since then, it's lit a fire within him to explore the human potential through martial arts. Invincible Worldwide has featured on network TV such as Channel 9, Channel 8, Channel 10, and The Project. In this episode, we speak to Alan about his childhood and how getting bullied actually motivated him to start martial arts, along with his journey from teaching his classes in empty car parks to now having his own world-class award-winning gym. Alan also shares with us why having a healthy and abundant mindset has been key to his success, not only for himself, but in motivating others as well. We hope you enjoy the episode.
I suppose the first question I want to ask you is, martial arts is probably one of those things that every Asian kid wanted to do growing up. But at some stage, you obviously really got into it. So what I wanted to ask is, we don't often see someone turn that into a full-blown career. So if we sort of wind it all back, what is it that got you into martial arts in the first place?
Initially, a lot of people, I've been doing martial arts for about 21 years now. And a lot of people think, oh yeah, you've always loved martial arts and it's your thing. I remember as a kid at 5 years old, I was driving past this martial arts place in my parents' car, right? And I looked over and I see, a couple of kids waiting for the martial arts class in their white karate uniform. And one kid punched the other in the stomach and he got knocked down. And I was like, holy crap, I would never want to do that. I would never want to get into that. But then, it's like when I turned 12 years old, one of my neighbors was, he just moved in next to us and he was doing martial arts. And he was like, oh, do you want to come? And then at that time, 12 years old, just like, yeah, whatever.
You're up for anything.
Up for anything, I did my first class with Shaolin Kung Fu, and I loved it. I wouldn't say that it was transformative in my first session, but growing up watching the Asian movies and all the martial arts movies, you see the training montages and you're like, cool, they learn it and then they go home and they train in the basement or whatever. I just got inspired by that. So I learned it from the teachers and I go home in my garage every day, train. I just kept training. I didn't know that most people who do martial arts, they only train once a week and then that's it, as a hobby.
Oh, you were doing it every day?
I was doing it every day. Every single day. Come home from school and I was dead set training because I thought that's how you're meant to do it. And a year moving forward, I started to accelerate faster than everyone else around me, and everyone's like, what the hell? Like, how come you're moving so fast? How come you're so much stronger, faster? And I'm like, how often do you train? He was like, oh, just, once a week. I'm like, man, I do every day. So and then it just became momentum. And then I just kept that up for years. And one thing led to another, I just loved it. And it gave me confidence, I was a shy kid growing up. Gave me confidence, gave me strength, and as a teenager, when your body starts to change, you see muscles like, oh, hey, it's pretty good.
So, six-pack looks pretty good.
And then I just kept diving into more and more. I started studying other things and read into Bruce Lee's lifestyle and just dove into it.
Bruce Lee's obviously big on philosophy as well.
Yeah.
And I know when we were talking before this, you also really focused on mindset. So I think we'll get into that in a second as well. But where I sort of like to start is to get an understanding of your upbringing as well. So can you walk us through where you grew up, what your family life was like?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cabramatta on Hughes Street. So that's like the center of Cabramatta. Yeah. And we grew up in the early 90s. So that was the time when, 5T gangs and drug addiction, and we were poor, like we weren't well off. So we lived in the flats, right, the apartments. And those apartments in those days, I remember waking up and my grandma's walking me to school. It's a 10-minute walk to school, to Cabramatta Primary School. And every time we open the door of our apartment, there's every few days there's a person lying in front of our door, like overdosed, right? And sometimes you walk out and you see ambulance carrying people, and it's just like crazy. Sometimes you see like, across the corner, see like a leg hanging out because someone's just like passed out. That was what I was used to growing up, and used to see, my neighbors having fights and domestic abuse and all that. It was intense.
It's like the ghetto, right?
It was like the ghetto, but you didn't know it was a ghetto because that's what life was like, And walking that 10-minute walk is you see all these it's just it was just the ghetto.
Yeah, and then family. Where your parents from?
My parents are from Vietnam, so my dad's Chinese, my mom's Vietnamese, and they just moved to Australia. So in our flat, we had 2 bedrooms, but we shared it amongst 2 families and my grandma. So my aunties, my uncle, my grandma, my parents, we were all in the same, So my grandma was sleeping in the living room. She had a bed in the living room. But the beauty of it is we were all together, right? And my parents never made it to feel like we were in the ghetto. I love them for that because we'd always spend time together on the weekends and just come together and eat and watch kung fu movies and stuff. That was my childhood. It was such a beautiful thing. And these days we don't have that because these days everyone just got their own thing, they're working and so on. But they never made it feel like we were poor. Anything I wanted on the weekends, we'd go Westfield and Toys R Us and what do you want? Even though we grew up in ghetto, I remember thinking wow, this is the best childhood.
You had no reference point, right? It was just your life, and that was what it was.
That was his life, and it was happy. It wasn't I know they were struggling, but then they never showed it.
Yeah.
Were the other kids around you living in the same kind of situation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we went to the same school, so everyone was in the same situation. But I don't know. My parents just kind of were able to show that unconditional love. Because I did hear from my other friends, my parents beat me today. I'm like, but,
Wow, okay.
Because I didn't really get beaten, but, So
you had a very safe, obviously, upbringing. It was a very warm upbringing as well. And then going to school, which school did you go to?
I went to Cabramatta Primary School, and I went to Canleyvale afterwards.
Canleyvale, what was that like?
Canleyvale was good. As times got better, we moved from Cabramatta to Canleyvale, and we moved into a townhouse. So we're slowly upgrading, and that was where I met my neighbor to do the martial arts. And school was good. I was bullied in Canleyvale though. I was a shy kid. I was a new kid in the school. I got picked on by these bigger guys who were louder and so on, that was life. That was life during that time. But again, I wasn't scared. I don't know why. It wasn't I hated school. I wasn't one of those kids oh man, I hate school. And I enjoyed every moment. I enjoyed being fun in school. But you get picked on. I was and then
it's a fact of life for you. You were oh,
it just felt like it is what it is. But I still enjoy it and so on. And I remember there was one time though where at school, which is we were just playing on the playground, but one of the bullies, the main guy, he picked up a rock and he just pegged it at me, right? It hit me on the head, and I started tearing up. And I've never teared up in school, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Alan La's crying! I've never seen that before." Because I was just this, just whatever. But at that moment, I just thought, how can a person do that to another? How can someone chuck a rock at someone else? It's such I couldn't even fathom that. I cried and everyone's like, oh my God, everyone's like, and people came and tried to console me and stuff like that, and the bully walked off and stuff. But I just remember that. And these days, doing what I do, I want to give confidence to people who don't have it. I want to give strength to people who feel like they're weak, and I always want to give clarity to people who feel lost. Many years later, randomly, that actual guy reached out to me on social media and says, "Hey, do you remember me?" And at that time, I won't say his name, but at that time he messaged me and I thought he was someone else.
So you didn't remember?
I didn't remember him at all. So he messaged out and I thought, oh, he's someone else. Because now, Invincible Worldwide, a lot of people know who we are, even my old friends. So they're proud of me now. They're like, oh, cool, we support what you do and stuff like that. So I thought he was just another person saying his well wishes and support. And said, oh, can I give you a call? So then he gave me a call, gave me my number, gave me a call. And he said, oh, do you remember me? I used to bully you in school. Oh, shit, this was that guy. And he just said, oh, I just want to say, I'm so sorry. and I'm so proud of what you're doing right now and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh. But by then it was just like that, man. It's like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's all water under a bridge, right?
It's like,
He
yeah,
must have carried
whatever.
that guilt for a long time.
He probably, but you know, but I just said, no, man, don't worry, no sweat. Like it is what it is.
And did that transform into anything? You know, like it was just a conversation? Or?
Yeah, it was just a conversation, and he just sent his well wishes, and he still follows me, and But
Amazing.
I haven't spoken to him since though. So.
Yeah, but I mean, it's incredible to see, you know, people who grew up either as bullies or, I suppose, you know, just having a different status, you know, in school.
Yeah.
And then when you mature and you become adults, people lead and go down very different
It's
roads.
nice to see. You know,
Yeah, it's nice. And it's also, you got to give credit to people like that to sort of muster up the courage, because he didn't have to do that.
He didn't have
but
to.
the fact that he reached out was, you know, I think
That's
like,
right.
yeah, kudos to him as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you said martial arts came in at around about, was that 12 years of age you were saying?
11, 12 years
11,
old.
12. So you would have been still in primary school at that time,
Yeah.
right? And so walk us through that journey in terms of the martial arts side of things with you eventually leading into setting up Invincible HQ, because I know you had some great stories when you shared with us, you know, before the call, you know, the car park, for example, and that situation. So walk us through all of that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I was doing martial arts all the way throughout high school and training ridiculous hours. Like I was doing 2 hours in the morning, come back home, doing another 3 hours, and that was every day.
Wow.
Yeah, and school holidays, I love school holidays because I'd be training, you know, 8 hours a day, like just nonstop.
Actually, just on that,
Yeah.
when you say training, can you just walk us through what you would be doing during these trainings? Because like I'm in the gym half an hour, I'm done. But 3 to 5 hours twice a day is ridiculous.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, that's not the average person. But yeah, walk us through that.
It was weird. Initially, the first few years, I did exactly what I learned in class, you know, so like the punches, the kicks, the push-ups, the forms, the katas, whatever. I just did exactly that. But as I started researching into Bruce Lee and modern training methods and other training methods, I started incorporating that into what I did. And then eventually I just kind of wrote my own programs towards after that. And I used to stick these little Post-it notes in my garage of like what to do. And I used to draw like little check boxes and I tick them off every single day. And I loved to draw as a kid. So then I went through a phase where I even drew what to do. Like drew, I punched, and then all right, cool, that's what I'm doing. I drew a kick, a person doing a kick. And it just got me motivated, you know, by seeing all that. And so yeah, every day just kind of make sure I tick my boxes and I'm good. I don't know how it went to 4 hours. You know, it's you just walk into the garage and that was my zone, my time. And then, you know, you get into flow and then time just slows down. And before you know it, time's gone. But as a kid, it didn't matter. Like 4 hours, it doesn't matter, you know. But now you got to check your time. You got to be like, all right, I got to be here by this time. So that was, I think that had that advantage of being at that age. And I loved it. And so like I said, I just felt myself getting stronger. I felt myself pushing the limits. And again, watching Dragon Ball Z at that time as well, that was just going big.
That's when it was big, yeah.
And watching the speed and the power, it just blew my mind of what is possible, you know. And again, watching Bruce Lee, how fast he was, I wanted that, and I strive for that every day.
You were training, right? How did that then turn into a community of people? Because you told me a particular story, and I want you to sort of tell that to the audience, which was you were saying you were training in PCYC, and oftentimes you said there'd be no space for you. So can you tell us that story? Yeah,
definitely. How I started teaching martial arts was in high school. So I'd moved from Macquarie Fields High School to Hurlston. So I made it into Hurlston, and then on the third day that I was there, all my new friends, they were like, oh, show us something. You do martial arts, show us something, right? And so, yeah, I showed them like a kick, a 540 kick. And then within 10 seconds, I had a crowd around me. Everyone on the playground, this was during recess. Everyone just came around and like, oh, show us something more, show. And I just showed them a couple of moves, and everyone just like, oh my God, like, I've never got that attention before. You know, and so, and all my friends were like, oh, can you teach us? Can you teach us? So, all right, sweet. And yeah, and I was like, all right, cool, we'll come back to my garage after school and I'll teach you some stuff. And they were like, oh, can we pay you? We need to pay you and stuff. And like, and
really, you had friends
really
at the time who offered to pay you?
Yeah.
My friends were asking me for lunch money most of the time. Really? Okay.
They wanted to pay for it and stuff, but I don't know. At that time, I didn't want any money and stuff. They're like, no, it's okay. You know, I'll teach, no problems. And then we were year 11, year 12, and we used to play 13. right? Play cards, and we used to bet and stuff, and we bet $2 or whatever. And it's sometimes you're down, and so I said, all right, cool. Well, if we made a deal where you don't have to pay me, but I'm down, then we'll waive it and stuff. So that was my deal with them. So yeah, I used to come home from school and teach them for like an hour, and they loved it. And then they catch a train home, and so on. So then from that, I felt myself really enjoying passing on the knowledge, right? I enjoyed writing the programs for them, and I enjoyed really showing them and seeing their progress and so on. And when I finished high school, the 3 months break before uni, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I remembered when I used to train in martial arts, like back in the teenage days, I had a neighbor, like smaller neighbor, who used to come over to do tutoring with my sister. They used to study together. And every now and then, I'm punching I'm punching away, doing whatever I'm doing in the garage, and I see a little head pop over, and he's always watching what I'm doing. And every time I look over, he's like, he hides. So I thought, oh, this kid's probably interested in martial arts. During this 3-month hiatus, I want to teach martial arts. Let's see where it takes me. So I asked him, and he was interested. So he brought two of his cousins. So I had 3 people, and so yeah, I set up a little thing in my garage, and yeah, from 3 people, that slowly grew to 5 people, and then grew to 10. So we couldn't fit anymore. It was probably half the size of this room.
Was that because they were telling their friends? How did that grow?
How did it grow during that time? Yeah, they were just telling their friends. From the cousins, the cousin brought a friend, from the friend brought a random person in, and it just started to grow.
Yep.
They were just telling each other at school, and then it just started to grow. To a point where we couldn't fit anymore, because we were practicing the splits or whatever, and you can't fit 10 people. And then one of the guys said that, oh, Alan, I've got this place that you can grow, and at that time I was like, yeah, that'll be awesome, And he's one of those guys that talks a lot. He's like, oh yeah, like he boasts things like, yeah, man, I got this perfect place. You're gonna love it. I'll show you next week. Come with me. It's gonna be the best. And all right, cool. I'm excited. So, and this was different to the PCY. This was in Lakemba,
Right.
And this was a community hall in Lakemba. And when we walked in there, right, the basketball ring's half broken, the window's broken, paint's peeling off, and the door didn't even lock properly. It was just like a random hall. He walked in, was so proud, like, Alan, check this out. This is
Welcome to my lab.
Yeah. But I looked at it and I'm like, just give me one shot and I'll make this work. Like give me one shot and that's all I need. And so that place, we started to do shows, like start promote things, I put posters up. I remember there were nights, when you're first starting something, you get so excited, right? And you even dream about it, and because I love teaching and I love seeing people change, and I was already kind of fusing motivational talks into my martial arts, and I was seeing people grow. So I'm thinking, man, like I dreamt one night, I remember I dreamt walking around 50 people, and I was inspiring 50 people. Keep in mind that that time I had 10 max on a good day. Average was like 5, it was like, cool, it was cool. But 50 people, I woke up so excited. Like I was walking around 50 people, everyone's screaming, everyone's punching, I was like kicking, whatever. It's so exciting. Energy was so good. And I woke up, I was like, oh, it's a dream, and I'll never forget that there was one day where, Lakemba is half an hour away from where I used to live in Fairfield. So what I used to do was I get home from uni, and I quickly get changed. Then I go pick up the first 3 guys I used to teach, my neighbor and his cousins. I used to pick them up and we'd drive to Lakemba together, and that kind of helped me teach and just kind of make the class look bigger, you know? So that was the thing. So, and they were in school. So I used to pick them up and drive that half an hour to Lakemba and paint them the vision. Like, guys, we're going to be this big. We're going to do this. And the class is going to get 50 people. Today, I'm going to do this drill. It's going to be so exciting. It's going to really amp them up, get them excited. I don't know, half the time I was talking excited, but they were probably just like, whatever. They were looking out the window. Who's this guy, crazy guy? But they'd help me teach assist in the class and get energy up. But there's one particular day, I'll never forget it. One particular day, it was raining. Right, I came in from uni and it started to pour, and I got a message from them saying, "Oh, Alan, we got homework today, so we can't come." So that happened every now and then. But to me, it didn't matter. All right, cool. I'll teach the class alone, no problems. And I just so I was driving to my car there, getting hyped up. Like, all right, I'm going to do new drills today. I've got new equipment, got new ladders and things to train them with, get everyone excited. So I drive there. So class starts at 7. So I got there at 6:30, get everything set up, obstacle course, whatever. Everything's all set up. And I'm sitting there by myself. Normally, you know, I'd be briefing the guys or whatever. Sitting there by myself, just waiting for everyone to come. 7 o'clock comes along, and then no one's there yet, right? So I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's raining. Maybe it's, you know, people are late, so it's raining and so on. So I'm sitting there, still getting prepped up, you know, because before your class or before a show, before a speech, you put yourself in the zone. You amp yourself up. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. 7:15, and there's still no one there. And I'm thinking, man, what? Maybe they're just really, really late. Let's just wait a little bit longer. Maybe they'll be wait. 7:30 comes along, and you know your heart starts to sink a little bit, and you're sitting there in the middle of that giant hall, like, all right, you know, what do I do now? 7:45, thoughts start coming to your head. You know, it was like, so you know, why do you put so much into this? Right? Why are you so passionate about this? What are you doing? What do you think you're doing? You know, maybe your friends are right, or maybe your parents are right. Like, what do you think?
You started had self-doubt creeping in.
Yeah, at that time, you know, you wait for 45 minutes, no one's there, and it's like, what am I doing? And to the fact that I put so much heart and passion into it, yet no one's seeing it. There's no result. You know, even my own guys, they didn't see the vision. Even the students don't see the vision, and it was this kind of like, like you feel like this invisible voice. Like you see it, you see this reality, you see it, but no one else sees it. So it's like your imagination sees it, but the reality is not there yet. And you start to think, well, maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's not, you know. But when I sat in that hall, in the middle of that hall, you know, equipment's around me, I'm like, nah, screw it. You know, like, I'll never give up. In that moment, I was like, as long as I promise myself I'll never give up, I'm good. That's all that matters, you know. Even if people don't believe it, as long as I believe it, that's all I care about. And I just made the decision that from now on, no matter what happens, as long as I choose not to believe it, as long as I don't believe in that voice, put it away and just believe in my heart, that was it, you know. And so yeah, 8 o'clock came along, class finished, technically finished, packed everything, I drove home. And next day, the next week when we went back there, you know, we had 3 people again, and then slowly we grew, you know, just grew to 10, and we hit double digits, so we're getting happy, and 20, and then it started to grow. And then things start to pick up from there, you know, and so after that, I opened up another spot in Fairfield, and that's the one where we just get kicked out a lot. And so Fairfield, we had 2 locations running, so, you know, 2 nights a week at that time, and Fairfield was a little bit more nicer than the Lakemba one. Yeah, the windows weren't broken, and paints weren't peeling off. It was a nice spot. And we're creating buzz at that time. Like our YouTube channel started to go viral. I was shooting a whole bunch of show reels all the time. I just love creating content at that time. And this was in 2011, which was, you know, YouTube was just start to grow up. There was no Instagram, there wasn't Facebook. And we just started shooting random stuff in the car parks and stuff. And as the YouTube channel got viral, and then that drew a lot of students for us in Fairfield. And yeah, so class starts to grow from 20 people to 30, and eventually we got to 50 people. And we're trying to fit 50 people in the room. And I didn't realize at that time that I had that dream. You know, I was just so into it. It's like, all right, cool. We got to keep everyone excited, keep everyone motivated. And then yeah, every now and then, like that place that we had, management sometimes would just kind of, because we were paying rent, so we were booking this place, but sometimes they booked it for like the shows or theater shows and stuff. And so, you know, a class starts at 7, I rock up at 6:30, and then without notice, they'll say, you know, you can't bring your students in here tonight, because we've got props and stuff, you know.
They don't tell you?
They didn't tell us. They told me right then and there at 6:30. And I'm like, what is, and I was young. I couldn't say anything. You know, I didn't know what to say.
You had the experience to deal with it.
Yeah, you know, and we didn't sign anything. You know, they just made us, oh, you pay this much every week, and all right, cool. you're young, you don't know what to do, but you're young and you're passionate. So I'd have like 30, 40 people waiting outside. And I'll be like, what do I do now? They say, well, can I at least, I thought, well, if I was to block off the props, can I at least bring them in? So there's no way you can bring them in, So then I thought, all right, there's a car park next, across the street. So I thought, all right, let's bring them across the street and let's just train there, because at least we need a roof over our heads.
Yeah.
And this was in the middle of winter too. It was cold, in the middle of winter, and I had like 40 people, and some people were late, so eventually 50 people. And I thought, how do I motivate these people? They were always ready to train, but this is a different beast. Like, this is in concrete. They're going to get cold, and so I thought, all right, let's start a mantra. Like, we're going to be stronger than concrete tonight. We're going to be tougher than concrete. We're surrounded by concrete. Let's be tougher than concrete. So I drilled that into everyone's heads. Like, no matter what, we're gonna be strong. We're invincible. Like, we're gonna be tough. So then, I brought them over to the car park, and by the end of that first night that we did it, everyone loved it. Everyone was like, oh, like, that was so much fun. Like, we were doing push-ups on concrete. We were doing, whatever. It was so much fun. And everyone was like, oh, can we come back again next week? So, every now and then we'd take them to the car park.
So the car park became the regular spot.
Became a regular spot every now and then.
But there was a car park, so there was obviously cars driving through.
Oh yeah, like it was the most dodgy thing, So because winter was dark, right?
Yeah.
And so you can only rely on the car park. Those lights. You can barely see anything. It was dark, and you have 50 people there. Every now and then you see a car coming. You're like, oh damn! All right, guys, move out of the way, and I get back into positions. So that was it. But we literally started pretty much on the streets.
And how long were you doing that for in the car park?
Car park, that was for about 2 years.
Wow, 2 years of that.
It was back and forth between the
CYC? That was a different
It was called PYT.
Oh, PYT.
Yeah,
okay.
Powerhouse Youth Theatre.
Right.
So that hall and the car park.
Right.
And then also Lakemba. So that was about 2 years.
This episode is produced and brought to you by Social Wave. Social Wave is a strategic content marketing agency helping businesses grow revenue using video, podcasts, and SEO. Head on over to socialwave.com.au to find out more. Now back to the show.
Was it called Invincible HQ at the time, or
It was
when did
called
that come about?
Invincible Worldwide, which is the company name. The reason for Invincible was that feeling that I had, that you can do anything, you can walk through walls. Like, you feel like as long as you believe in yourself, that's all you need. You just believe in yourself, you can do anything. That's all I thought about. Because I went from a shy kid, and martial arts gave me strength and abilities I never thought I could. So I kept that. So I wanted to share that feeling, So to me, Invincible became an idea. It's an idea that no matter who you are, what you look like, what your background is, where you come from, how you're built, you can achieve great things in life. That's the Invincible idea. And then worldwide is my constant reminder. I want to share this to the world,
Right.
Not just local. I never saw us as local. I never want to just be, we're a Lakemba school, or we're a Fairfield Academy. We're global, So Invincible Worldwide. So worldwide is always my reminder. So that was always the goal. And HQ came later. So the current gym that we have now, the headquarters is
In Wetherill Park? Yep.
In Wetherill Park, yeah. So what happened with that was, during that time, I was doing motivational talks as well as a side gig. So by this time, I was working full time, and I got an opportunity to do motivational speaking in a school. So one of my students just like, oh, Alan, my school's looking for a speaker, because you do talks for us all the time in front of class. How about you do in the school? All right, cool. Yeah, well, it's for free.
You shitting yourself?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I was like, shit, this is scary. Like, because in front of my students, they know me. Like, they know I can do skills, and they're already excited. But fresh kids, high school kids. So the first gig was at 30 kids. And I prepped so much for that. I prepped for 4 weeks in advance. Word by word, I rehearsed it. Every night I just rehearsed my speech, and everything was just practice. So I didn't want to screw it up. But the first gig, I screwed up everything. Everything went wrong. My words stumbled and nothing went right. But they loved it. For some reason, it was just a small class. They loved it. And then they were like, oh, can you come back and do another one? And so I did it. And the funny thing is, like, during that time, because I was working full time, and we were booked in the morning at 9 a.m. I was fortunate. My work, I worked as an account manager for Irwin Tools. It was a tools company. So it meant that I wasn't in an office. They gave me a company car, company laptop, company credit card. It was a pretty sweet job. But I just had to drive to different Bunnings stores. I was working in Bunnings stores and just kind of building relationships with the Bunnings managers and stuff. That was my role, But because I didn't have a manager to, what I did was to be able to do that 2-hour gig, I'd turn off my phone, and I'd pretend I was at work. So I used to do that for a while, until my boss kind of like, where have you been for the last 2 hours? I was like, oh, my phone died. Sorry, I forgot to charge my phone. So I'd use that to get into the motivational speaking. And then eventually they booked me back and they were like, oh, cool, like can we book you in for a bigger one? And so my first big gig was at Holston, which was my high school.
Oh, really?
And that was such an honor because that was my high school.
Do they know you're an ex-student?
Yeah. Okay. So because they saw me on social media doing motivational talks, one of the students from Holston was like, hey, can we get you in? And yeah, that was my first paid gig. And it was, and I remember stepping on top in front of it. I was like, man, like this is so scary. I was backstage, and we were prepping up and you see like these 250 seats, in the assembly. And you're like, oh shit, like,
it's real.
It is real, like I'm used to like 50 people max. Yep. This is 5 times the amount. And they're not moving. They're just sitting there. If I'm teaching martial arts, everyone's moving. Yeah. It's easy. They're sitting there. And I've got an hour and a half with them and I need to motivate them. So I remember thinking, oh shit, like what am I doing? And I'd rehearse everything. I knew what I need to say, but it just, the heart's pumping, it's hands sweaty. And I just remember that as soon as they introduced me and stuff, played our video, they handed me the mic. And I was trembling, I was sweating. I almost dropped it, it was so sweaty. And I walked on and I was silent for the first like 30 seconds. I just kind of just looking at everyone. And I was looking at everyone's eyes and I'm like, they're just like me, years ago, right? With no direction or no confidence, and I thought to myself, like, what can I give them today? That was just a quick thought in my head. And so everything just kind of flowed out. Like, what can I give them today? Well, I didn't want to take anything. I'm not here to boost my ego or whatever. I'm not, a speaker or whatever. I just want to give. I'm just here to give. So for the next hour and a half, I just poured my heart out to them and just wanted to help them as much as I could.
What did you talk about? What was the topic?
I had planned topics of self-belief, so believing yourself, setting goals, and also breaking through limitations. So I'd spoken to a couple of things that I learned from my mentors, NLP stuff, like different tools as well. I gave them practical tools they can use. And I did the Tony Robbins thing where at the end of class, I give them a board. Like it was a proper thick, 2 centimeter thick board. On one side, I got them to write their goals. And on the other side, to write their fears. And I got them to break through. So, when they break through their board, it's like a metaphor that you can achieve your goals. Everyone loved it. I don't know if they love me speaking or they love the board breaking, but I got booked out for the next year and a half, from Liverpool girls to a whole bunch of different schools that we were just constantly booked out to do these talks. And I was charging about $2,500 for like an hour and a half gig. And it was like, oh man, this is cool.
Yeah.
So I was doing that plus working full time. And then it got to a point where I met with a business mentor, Andrew Morello.
Oh, yes, from The Apprentice.
From The Apprentice,
right.
yeah. So he works with Entourage as well. Yep. So I met up with him and he looked at what I did and I sat down for coffee with him, actually. I can't remember how I caught up with him.
Actually, before you do that, how did you get Andrew Morello as a mentor? Yeah, he's a big deal. Like he's very well known in the space.
He got us to do. He was launching a jewelry kind of company, and he got us to perform.
Oh,
at his
so
thing.
He found you guys, and
yeah, he got us because we, apart from teaching martial arts, I got my team and I to do demos every now and then. To do shows. We used to perform for the Lunar Festival in Cabramatta. Different gigs. We did at the Opera House one time as well. We just performed. He got us to do like a small thing at his soft launch for his thing. And then he was like, yeah, cool. He didn't pay us. He was like, oh, in return, well, let's catch up for coffee and I'll see.
And that's how it hit it off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So keep going.
And I told him about what I did with Invincible Worldwide. He's like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, you know, he even said down the track, well, maybe I'd like to be on your board of directors as well and to support you and so on. But yeah, I said, oh, let's take it slow. Let's just see what we can do. So he said to me, what do you need next? You know, I said to him, well, I'm at a fork in the road right now. I don't know what I need to do because I've got this academy, you know, about 50 people coming once a week. You know, it's pretty cool, good energy. And I've got this motivational speaking thing, you know. And so he said to me, you can only do one. And so I had a full-time job as well, which I knew I was going to leave because that full-time job needed me to travel to Orange and stuff. And I couldn't teach if I did that. So I was like, no, that's going to go. You can only do one. So he says, if you do the motivational speaking, it sounds like that's a really good thing right now because you've got a good niche. You incorporate martial arts, you got board breaking there, you know, you're booked out already. It sounds like a good thing. Only thing is you can't take your team with you. You can't, you know, it's only you that you can do, you know. But he says if you do the other one, you can take your team with you and you can scale as well. That's what he was just focusing on, scaling and big stuff. And I was stuck because I love both. I drew so much energy from both. And so I drove home from the city that afternoon and yeah, we were teaching on the car park rooftop as well. The sun was setting and you see all these students training energy. And at that time, I had my team starting to help me teach as well. So they were teaching. I was just sitting there kind of just soaking it all in. And I thought myself, yeah, I really enjoy this. You know, let's put a pause on the motivational speaking and, you know, put a hiatus on that and invest in the team. I wanted a future for the team as well, for them to get somewhere. So yeah, for the team and the students, we decided to find a home for us, and took about 6 months of searching, and we found a warehouse in Wetherill Park, and then it became our first home, you know, and it was beautiful. Like we had a whole bunch of students come in, and the team had a home. We had a home to train at as well, you know. So and then that was HQ.
It must have felt really stable to be able to ground yourself in one space rather than switching around all the time.
Yes, it felt so good to have our own home, to put our own signage up, you know, and not worry about, you know, moving things around and packing things up. It's like, this is us, this is where we are. And I put so much thought into building that HQ. I didn't want it to just be another gym or another martial arts school. It had to be something unique, you know, and so I painted the walls black. And at that time, everyone was like, that's weird. Like, why would you paint it all black? It's gonna be so hot, or you know. I'm like, nah. Like, this is what I want. That's the Invincible brand. Because I always imagine if Nike had a gym, what it would look like. I want us to be like Nike, like excellent, like premium, you know, like quality. I thought to myself all the time, like, how can we make it better and better and better? So as far as I know, in Australia, we're one of the first to incorporate like the kind of the strength training, the fitness, the CrossFit floor. Yeah, we had the rig, the pull-up bars, and the all the strength equipment, and another floor for martial arts. Because back in those days, this was 2005, back in those days, 2015, a lot of martial arts schools I go to was just the mats to train at, and then you have in the corner probably like a couple of strength equipments. Or you go to like a gym where it's just all strength training equipments, but you know, you might have a small mats for martial arts or rolling, whatever. So I made sure, I wanted this system where you do skills training, which is your martial arts, get strong, fast, powerful, flexible, you own your body, and then you move into strength. Because a lot of martial arts back then, I felt like they didn't have the strength and the physique of athletes. Yeah. But then athletes didn't have the dexterity, speed, and flexibility of martial artists. So I wanted to fuse the two. So that's why on our awards, we call it building high quality human beings. And it's not an ego thing, but I want to build people who own themselves, who master themselves physically and mentally. And then that's where we are.
And how many members have you got now?
At the moment, we've got a bit over 300 members. Yeah, so we had 400 before COVID, but then now, so we're slowly building back up.
Well, COVID's one of those things I wanted to ask. Obviously, every bloody gym in the country shut down during COVID. Can you tell us what that was like when COVID first hit and how you dealt with that? When
it first hit, we're actually quite prepared because you know, I've got friends who own schools in America, and America was weeks ahead of us at that time. So they were already tapping into Zoom, and they were already looking into Zoom and stuff and experimenting. So I was just watching what they did, and and be like, all right, cool. Well, this is probably the next thing we need to do. And so the nights that they were going to announce the lockdown, that was I tested the first Zoom. I bought a Logitech little camera thing, and just did it. And then the main struggle was getting everyone on board, because Australia, we weren't ready. We're like, what is Zoom? It's not going to work. You can't teach martial arts and stuff. But we were like, there's nothing we can do. We can't have anyone in the gym. So this is what we need to do. And then slowly people got on board. And then that gave us the opportunity to teach live to people around the world too. Because by then, we had YouTube channel and stuff. We had a lot of people around the world following us. And they were like, oh, do you have a gym in Russia? Do you have HQ in India, in the US, and so on? So we had people jumping on and it was good fun. COVID, it affected us, but to me, it was a blessing. I think, it helps us clean a lot of our processes up, clean a lot of things up. And I think we come out better. I think it's just how we respond to things, I do know a lot of schools who didn't make it through COVID, and I do know a lot of people who just struggled a lot. And I think, it's tough, but it's tough for everybody. It was a tough time for everyone. So I think it's just, you help where you can. We ran a lot of free classes at that time too, just to,
Mm-hmm.
help the community with their mental health, because a lot of people were struggling. You do what you can, so.
I mean, you've got a massive following across socials. We're talking, Instagram, YouTube, as you mentioned a few times as well. I'd be super curious, because I think this is something that I'm in marketing, so this is something I'm interested in. How can you walk us through the journey on how you grew? Because you touched on YouTube, right? But I just want to understand. You've got hundreds of thousands of followers combined in terms of all these platforms. What were the big milestones? What were the big things that happened that helped you grow your following?
I don't think there was ever a milestone of like, oh, we did this and then, oh, boom, we grew. It was just organic. It was just like slow, just time grow. Certain things you post and it goes viral, and then you do get a spike, but it's never it's never something you can rely on. Like they can predictably say, all right, this is gonna go viral. It's just something you just gotta keep putting out. And I went through a phase where I was really into the numbers and like tracking everything, and I was like, all right, this post went well, so let's do more of that, or like these headlines or hashtags or whatever. But it just got too much, and it just felt like it worked somewhat, but I just felt myself kind of wanting the numbers, wanting the followers, and wanting the likes and stuff, and it took me away from what I believed in. So I thought, nah, screw this. I'm just gonna post what I'm feeling at that time. If that helps somebody, then awesome. And I started creating content that I needed. Because we were going through COVID during that time too. For example, during COVID. So I thought, all right, I'm going to make a video or a post about leadership during COVID. How do leaders show themselves during crisis? It's a crisis. A crisis doesn't build character; it reveals your character. So I thought about that, and I contemplated that, like, how can I use that quotes to help me and also other leaders? So I create content around that, and then people just loved it. It's just something that I just try to post something that I feel I would need. If someone in my position or anyone that would need. So I post something like 4 things to do to have more energy every day, or five reasons why you need to have a gratitude practice in the morning. Something that I do and something I can share with others. Yeah. And I think that's what people relate to. And it just snowballed from there.
Yeah.
With you guys getting so global as well and growing such a big following, did you find that you attracted a type of community or specific people into either online and also physically in your classes? Or is it, all kinds of people?
Yeah, they're all types of demographics. But in terms of psychographic, they all love improving themselves and growing themselves. They have a passion for martial arts, which is obvious, but they're not into the martial arts for fighting or competing or beating other people down. So I think I like how that message is resonating, because it's about growth, personal growth, self-growth. And a lot of people that are coming into us, they're just wanting to be the best version of themselves for their families, for their kids, friends, for their careers. They just want to be able to master themselves, and to me, that's a beautiful thing. And so Invincible for me has grown over the years, where it used to start out as just this thing where it's martial arts and mindset, but it then became about being the best of yourself, which is, your physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, holistically better. But now to me, I've learned now Invincible is just this idea that we are already enough. Many years ago, I went to this conference in Greece with Pauline and a couple of friends. And it's called A-Fest, right? Run by a company called Mind Valley. And they get all the high-end speakers and coaches and whatever coming. And it's invitation only. So you got to kind of have some kind of profile, whatever, to be invited at that time. I don't know how I got in. I just applied for it and I got in. But, you know, when I met all the people there, they were like amazing, like best-selling authors, running charities, you know, running companies, billionaires as well. I met a guy that owns a jet, you know, and I was like, holy crap. And you're having breakfast and lunch with all these people. And the cool thing about that conference was the speakers were having lunch and breakfast with you too, and dinner, right? You know, most conferences you go to, the speakers, you know, they're in their own room. Yeah. But this was 3 days where everyone's together. And I met this lady, and it's Marissa Peer. She's a hypnotist, but she's also a consultant for the Queen, like the Queen. Oh, yeah, and she was just telling us amongst our table, right? She was like, you know, the biggest problem that we all face, you know, is that we feel we're not enough. We're always constantly striving for more. We need to achieve more, you know. We need to be more, you know. And she says, what I do is she goes into the girls' bathrooms and she gets a lipstick out and she writes, I am enough. 3 words, I am enough. And even we just say it ourselves. Like if you're listening now, just say, I am enough. It's just like, it's just your body just relaxes. I am enough. And that resonated with me so much at that time because I went through so many phases of, I had so many goals prior to that, right? I wanted to own a gym. Cool, did that. I wanted to write a best-selling book, did that. I wanted to speak in front of you know, like, and earn a lot of money with that, you know. I wanted to help retire my parents. I wanted to, you know, make a lot of money, whatever. I had all these goals. And every time I ticked these goals off, I never felt satisfied.
You always wanted more.
Always wanted more, and it was never enough. I always remember, like, the first anniversary of our gym, everyone was congratulating me. Oh yeah, you done so well. You done so well. Your gym's won awards and all this stuff, and you should be so happy. Every time they said it, it felt like what's wrong? They said something wrong with me. As soon as everyone left, I was sitting on top of we had this rig. I was sitting on top of it by myself, and I'm thinking, what's wrong? You know, I should be so happy right now. Like, well, I've ticked off all my goals. You know, everything that I wrote for the last 5 years, 10 years, it's all done. I'm here. You know, and I should be successful, and it just wasn't enough. And so I would always strive for more. And so when she said that, I'm enough, that was like, boom, like, I get it. Like, I can climb the mountain, but still appreciate the view instead of climbing the mountain and constantly look up at the next mountain, you know? And so now I believe in that's the idea of just enjoy the moments. You know, every day is a blessing. Every day we're perfect the way we are. And that's not to say to be complacent, to not do anything. You know, still have goals, still have ambitions, but enjoy the journey. You know, we learned that in year 12, like it's not about the destination, it's the journey. Like, you didn't get that at that time, but now you do, you know? So it's, you know, every day I just wake up, I do my gratitude practice, and I try to enjoy every moment, you know? And so
we definitely live in a culture of more.
Yes, especially us Asian communities.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And high achieving, very ambitious. And that's because particularly our parents who project maybe some of their aspirations in their lives on us, that there is this requirement to do more than you know, the average Joe. So I think whilst it's an innate Asian quality, I think it's a societal issue as well, where, you know, if you sort of spend time on social media, there's always someone who's doing more than what you're doing, and then you feel like you have to strive towards that. So I think it is really important for people to understand that it's not so much about being complacent, like you said, but it is also about understanding what is enough, because we roll from one thing into another, and there's this constant goose chase of trying to find the next big thing as well.
And you never feel fulfilled. You never feel satisfied. You know, and what for? To the end of your life, you haven't felt anything. One thing I try to teach my students, because having, you know, taught thousands of people now, coaching people and so on, I admit people around the world, I realized there are three types of people, you know. The first type of person is what I call the mediocre person. The mediocre person, and I look around, it's like probably like 80 to 90% of our population. People who just want to sit down on Netflix and not care about anything, and they're just content. They're like, I'm satisfied with my life. I work 9 to 5, whatever, and I'm good. This year they're here, next year they're here, year after, you know, there's no growth. They're just content to be wherever they are now, and that's it. Second type of person, what I call the achiever. The achiever is tenacious. They're the hustlers. They want to make more money, become more famous, and, you know, whatever. I used to be like that. But you get to a point where you feel like, you know, there's more to this. And Jim Carrey, you know, he says, I wish everyone's rich and famous, only to realize it's not what we're looking for. You know, we're blinded by this. So there's a lot of, and that's because of social media, as you said, more and more people are becoming these achievers now, these hustlers, the hustle and grind mentality. And, you know, but I feel like there's a third type of person, and what I call the hero. The hero is the type of person that does all the amazing things. Like they you know, they still build businesses, or they help people, and they do amazing things. They reach their goals, but they do it for a bigger purpose. You know, like there's not for the money or not for the fame. They do it to help people, and they do it from the heart. You know, and I think that's where it's at. Like I think that's the you want to leave a legacy. You know, at the end of your life, you want to look back and say, I've lived a great life. You know, we only got one life. I want to live a great life. I don't want to live a life chasing money or chasing fame, because that's you know, you lose all that.
I hear that a lot when I listen to, you know, podcasts of really successful people, or just interviews of people who have, you know, quote unquote made it. And they do say very similar things to you. They're like, it's not about the money, it's not about the fame, it's not about all of this. But I almost feel like people have to go through the process of going through that to realize, oh, it's not that great. And so sometimes you have to hear it from people like you, or to actually go through the journey. And I can understand that, because I would probably categorize myself as an achiever as well, someone who is always looking for more. There's always the next big thing. And I did spend probably the last, 12 to 24 months really reassessing, going, what is enough? And when I traveled around the world, which I tell very often on the podcast, for a year, I realized I could live out of a suitcase and be okay with being around the world. And I'm the happiest person in the world. So I think people need to understand that happiness is not it's not like, Lisa Choi talks about this in the podcast we had recently. She says, happiness is not something you strive for. It's like a present thing. Like you said, gratitude, you should be thinking about it now. Whereas we seem to have this understanding that happiness is this state of being that you should be striving for, and it's this holy grail, this
striving towards.
this bag of gold on the other side of the rainbow. So I think particularly for people who I would say the younger crowd who listen to this, they need to really understand that you have to express gratitude. And where I'm leading to is I would be curious to understand is you it seems to me that you have quite a routine around this sort of stuff. So do you have a routine that you go through, whether it's a morning routine or a daily or weekly routine, that has really helps you to stay grounded with this stuff? Yeah, definitely.
For the last 15 years of my life, I've been writing goals. I always have goals. And that kind of drove me into achiever mindset. But for the last probably 7 years of my life, every day I wake up with a gratitude practice. And it's refined. It got better over time. I used to start with writing off big lists. What are you grateful for? Like the roof over your heads, your family, the sun rising. But over time it gets deeper, and you really feel it. And just having, just being really appreciative of the people around you, the people who help you, people who love you and you love. And, that's more important than anything. And like the business or whatever, it's not as important as people. Every morning I wake up and I try to feel that. I think it's been proven by research that when your brain has different wavelengths, right, and frequencies, and if you don't consciously tune your brain to the right frequency, then you're just at the mercy of everything at life. You wake up, you check your phone, bad news, negativity, boom, that's like your frequency now. Then everywhere you walk around the streets, and you start to attract that frequency, So I think for me now, it's I wake up in the morning and I consciously determine my frequency. I tune it. So I tune it to love, appreciation, appreciate people around me. I appreciate good people, feeling gratitude and love and feeling good, and so it's just, and then that's what you attract.
Speaking of, I guess, the issues around how people think these days, you obviously coach, like you said, many people. What would you say are like the top issues that you're seeing at the moment? Not just with younger people, but just people in general that you're helping.
And I think COVID or the pandemic made it worse. Biggest issue I still see is the lack of knowing ourselves, right? Lack of believing in ourselves, lack of having that faith in yourself, in ourself, because we're always looking at external, and when you go back to internal, there's so much more power. There's so much more stuff in there. And the biggest thing that we can't access that and we believe in the external is because of fear. Our whole world is driven by fear. The news is driven by fear. Growing up, we're scared of what people think about us, especially in the Asian community too, right? Like
a lot of judgment.
Yeah, all the judgment. Oh, my neighbor got better marks. How come you didn't get better marks? And so he's a doctor. How come you're not a doctor? It's like there's all this judgment and standards that of external. Everywhere I go, I speak to everyone. No matter if they're 60 years old or 4 years old, fear is a big enemy. And that's why they say if you conquer yourself, conquer that fear, then you're good.
Absolutely.
But that comes from not listening to outside. I tell my students, I tell my partner all the time, stop TikToking, stop scrolling, and she says, oh yeah, but it's educational. I'm not looking at cats, I'm looking at educational stuff. But to me, it's like that stuff is good, but you still gotta have time to listen to yourself. Create time to listen to the voice inside and not what's outside. Yeah. So then you can critically think and decide instead of just, all right, cool.
I feel like, and I was having a chat with Davey on a flight back from Adelaide this weekend, and I literally had this conversation. I said to him, because he was, we were talking about how people are very uncomfortable with silence, right?
Yeah.
People literally have a problem of not doing anything.
Yeah.
And imagine doing like a 7-day, like I hear people do 7-day silent retreats and they almost become suicidal because they just cannot deal with just the amount of mental space that they've had available.
Yeah.
And so our tendency is to reach for our mobile phones and just start consuming things. And what you're saying and what I'm hearing is that we don't spend enough time giving ourselves that space to just think, right? You talk about you sitting on the car park and watching, your students and your team running the show. That was your space to come to that conclusion. If you can give yourself that space,
that's right.
You might be doing public speaking, or you still might be that account manager.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for people to understand that they need to give themselves some time. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be daydreaming.
It's hard though.
It is very difficult.
The way our world works now is addiction.
It's all the dopamine
And
hits.
it's dopamine, right? And it's hard to fast from that. So you start small, because I've been doing it for years. I consciously think for myself.
Train it into yourself.
You got to train it for. But when I tell people to do it, it's hard. It's too hard. So you just detox one step at a time, slowly, because it's addiction. So to get rid of any addiction, you can't just go cold turkey, and then you got to just slowly, and then
So what's the plan for you in the next few years? Obviously, things are growing massively as well. COVID is getting better.
Yeah.
Have you got any plans coming up in the year that you want to hit? I mean, you talk about goals and what you're setting.
Yeah.
So what's the plan?
At the moment is to keep building the HQ for our members, and we're putting together a coach's accreditation, because I get so many emails from people around the world say, oh, can we open a franchise? Can we open a license of Invincible Worldwide here? And I think we're at a stage now where cool, like I've got all the systems in place. I can teach how to run a successful gym, easy. I teach people how to coach. I coach our coaches how to coach, because I fuse public speaking into coaching. And so it's something different. Just kind of, that's probably the next thing, to kind of teach more coaches to do what we do and to be able to spread more positivity in the world.
Because you are only just one person.
Yeah.
So it's all about scaling the one Alan La into many. Okay, amazing.
And it's still the goal. Like if we can inspire people to live better, to believe in themselves, to have more confidence, I feel like then you'd have less people complaining, less negativity. You know, when people drive, they cut off each other, or they swear at each other, they hate each other. Like, that's because of fear. That's because they're not listening to themselves, and they're just bombarded, right? And they're stressed with the workload, or they're stressed with family. They're just allowing life to get to them rather than just listening to themselves and then working, inside out rather than outside in. Mm-hmm. And so we can show people to reclaim the power of themselves. Like, then slowly, slowly the world gets better, because like on our walls in our gym, we have three senses. We rise together, which means that when you're in the hour that we train together, we're going to elevate ourselves physically, mentally. We're going to push each other to be better. We inspire together means when you finish, you walk out, you're going to feel better, but spread that positivity, smile to the person you're buying coffee from, say hi, go home and hug your kids, like spread that positivity, Invincible's life is that live where you're in control of your life. So we rise together, we inspire together. Invincible's life. Control yourself,
Amazing, wise words. All right. I think it's a great way to end. Now, if people wanted to either visit the gym, but those who maybe are not in the Sydney area and want to learn more about what you do, where can they find you?
Oh, just go to invincibleworldwide.com is our website, or just go into my social media. We've got online programs, so we teach people all over the world. So not only just the gym, because everyone's like, I love to go, but I'm in Tokyo. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, and we'll drop those links in the show notes. But Alan, appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Level Asian podcast. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a 5-star review if you enjoyed the episode. And why not share it with friends and family who might enjoy it too? Also, make sure you head over to levelasianpodcast.com to join our email list and to receive the latest updates and get notified when the next episode drops. If you know a great guest we should feature, email us at contact@levelasianpodcast.com or DM us on our socials in the show notes. Catch you on the next episode.